Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tech Talk section. So today we have with us Dr. Srikant Sola. He's going to start the session of Tech Talks, and he's going to talk about the air pollution industry in India, which is a massive problem. And he's going to talk about the market, the industry, the technologies, and you can also ask your questions at the end of his talk regarding the air pollution industry and what you could be doing. So I'll just introduce Dr. Srikant Sola. So Dr. Sola is a cardiologist with a strong science and research background. He completed his graduation from Stanford University. He's a former cardiologist at the Cleveland Clinic, widely reputed as one of the top institutes for heart care in the world. And now he's working as CEO of Devic Earth, a Bangalore-based green tech company. And they create innovative solutions to mitigate air, water, and soil pollution. So with this, I'll invite Dr. Srikant Sola on stage. And sir, the stage is yours. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rahul. And thank you to all the audience. It's a delight to be here. I'm going to give a short talk on air pollution. It's the air that we breathe, and it's something that we tend to take for granted. And so I'd love to just bring your attention to some interesting things that we all need to understand. I'd like you to ask your questions as we go along. So please type your questions into the chat box, and we'll spend a little bit of time at the end going over those. Great. Let me know, can you see my slides? Are my slides visible? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so let's go through what's happening in air pollution technology. I understand the audience, so I want to look at the market size, the technological gaps, and especially for many of you, where is the technology going? Where is the industry going? So that you can understand what are the potential IP opportunities and challenges that lay ahead. Now, air pollution is something that affects everybody. It's not just Delhi, okay? Delhi is the poster child for air pollution in India. But unfortunately, 9 out of the top 10 most polluted cities in the entire world are located in India. And that leads to about 1.5 million deaths per year just for India alone, about 7 million deaths per year annually due to air pollution. That's 2 to 3 times more than the number of deaths due to COVID. All of this has tremendous economic effects of $2.9 trillion per year. That's about more than 3% of the world's GDP getting shaved off every year just due to air pollution. Now, the typical pollutants, I don't want to get too technical here, but the key points I want to emphasize is that air pollution is like an invisible killer. It's kind of like COVID in that sense that we can't see the virus, but we can know when it's there. The pollutants that we're concerned about are labeled by their size. They're called particle pollutants. That's what I'm going to talk about today. There are many other types of pollutants, but these are the most common, and they're labeled by their size. If it's 2.5, you can see the upper left-hand screen. It's about 2.5 microns in diameter. That's like 40 times smaller than the diameter of a human hair. If it's PM10, it's 10 microns in size. And these are really itty-bitty particles. If you go to the right side of the screen, you can see on this diagram, these particles enter through the airway. They go into the lungs, and from there they go to every part of the body. They damage the brain, the kidneys, the heart, the lungs, ovaries, testes, you name it. And that's why they're regulated by every environmental agency across the world. Now, the market size for air pollution control is pretty big for the air pollution control equipment. It's about $55 billion. And thanks to increasing awareness about air pollution, this market is growing fast. It's around growing at about 5%, but that's actually accelerating in the most recent years, despite COVID. The Indian market is also quite sizable. It's about $4+ billion. And the indoor, now that's for outdoor air pollution control equipment. This is what goes into thermal power plants and cement factories and all of these things. Here, now I want to talk about air purifiers, what we put in our house. That is also a sizable market as well, about 13.6 billion in the next few years, due to increasing awareness about the need for clean air. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but I just want to bring your attention to the mature technologies for air pollution control and what's new, because it's what's new that's really exciting. And that's what I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes on. The traditional mature technologies are really good. And this is what we put into thermal power plants, into steel plants, cement industries, the heavy industries that we need to make our buildings and our cars and all the things that we use every day. And these are things like electrostatic precipitators and scrubbers and baghouse filters. These are not cheap. There was a recent law passed by the Ministry of Environment and Forest around 2016. And the law said, look, all of you thermal power plants which are burning coal, you need to put in these scrubbers to reduce the amount of certain pollutants that are created from your power plants. It sounds like a good idea, and it was, because we know that about 1.8 lakh people, according to recent studies, 1.8 lakh people in India die every year just due to pollution from our coal-burning power plants. That's a lot of people. Now, if you put in these scrubbers, you could potentially make a huge dent in that morbidity and mortality. But there is a huge pushback from the thermal power plant industry. And today, this process has moved very, very slowly. The cost would increase the per unit rate of electricity by about 1 to 1.5 rupees, but it's proven to be politically unpopular. So these technologies are mature, they're very good, but they're typically only placed at the time of plant commissioning or when a plant is getting upgraded or enlarged. Now, there are some solutions for ambient air pollution. That means the air that we breathe. This is from NIRI, the National Institute for Environment, based out of Nagpur. And basically, it's a huge air purifier. This is a smog tower in Delhi that you would have read about. It cost about 20 crore rupees and about 1.5 rupees per year annually just in electricity charges plus all the filter costs. So far, it's not proven to be useful. This is the company that I represent called Devic Earth. It's a different type of technology that uses pulsed radio waves to create its effect, and it's proven to be quite useful both in laboratory and field studies. The talk is not about us, it's about the technology, but just to show you what is available. Now, this is the outdoor. Now, let's look at what's happening for indoor. Indoor, you're spoiled for choice. You have HEPA filters, which you know about. You would have seen these in your friend's home. Maybe you have them in your own homes. You have, if you're in a building, you have different types of filters that go into your ventilation system, and they're all types, and some of them can be quite efficient. The problem with these is once these units are finished, where do they go? They go into the dump yard. They're not recyclable. No, you can't do anything with it. So you're just taking the pollution out of the air and putting it into the dustbin. There are some new types of filters which are pretty cool, and you'll see many like these. This is one that's called Pico. There's many others. But the advantage with this is it's kind of like a HEPA plus. It's able to capture the small technologies, but it's also able to kill viruses, including COVID. And then there's some even newer technologies like bipolar ionization. How they work and all that is beyond the scope of this talk. But I want you to be aware that there's a lot of new technologies coming out, and it's really, really exciting. What's also cool is smart buildings. And basically what you do in a smart building is you put up sensors throughout the building. You connect it to your building management system using IoT devices. And then the building management system can detect various parameters, things like carbon dioxide levels in a room. If you've ever been inside a stuffy meeting room and after the meeting, you're like, oh God, that was a horrible meeting. Maybe it was the person who was talking, but if the CO2 levels inside that room are high, you're going to have reduced concentration, higher irritability, and lower memory. Blame it on bad air. It's really true. And productivity goes down when CO2 is high. So when the sensors detect that CO2 is high in an indoor space, they kick in and they increase the ventilation rate in that room, putting in more fresh air and pulling out the old static air. It's pretty smart, right? They can also adjust for things like temperature and humidity, which leads to considerable cost savings as well. Now, there are gaps in all of these technologies. No technology is perfect. If we look at the solutions that work on ambient air, if you look at technologies that are based on fans, for example, if you go outdoors, okay, and you try to put in a bunch of split ACs to cool the outdoor air around your colony, let's say where you live, what do you think is going to happen? Probably not much, right? It's really not going to be able to cool the outdoor air as well as you like. So these have limited efficacy if they're using fans. That's the problem with the Delhi smog tower, for example. And they can also have a limited area of coverage because, again, it's just like a fan that can't cover that large. If you have a filter-based component, the same thing that happens with your HEPA filters, what do you do with the filters at the end of its life? You have to throw it in the dump yard, and that's true with all types of filters. Indoors, these things have small areas of coverage. The indoor air purifiers that you guys might have are really not able to cover more than a small bedroom at the most. Some of them have harmful byproducts depending on the technology that's used. They can make a lot of noise and so forth. Our technology, I'll just very briefly cover this too, just to give an example of some of the new technologies that are coming up. Pure Skies works on a different system altogether. It uses pulsed radio waves to accelerate the natural clearance of certain pollutants. So that gives it a large area of coverage without really much maintenance cost, and there's no byproducts. It's able to work at high efficacy, can it work either indoors or outdoors. So basically what happens is these pollutants that are in the air, they have positive and negative charges on them. They agglomerate, they could collect, and then they become larger in size. This process is accelerated when it's exposed to our technology. And you can see that pollution comes down by half in cement plants, by more than half at a steel plant, at a thermal power plant by about half or so, and about 75% at an office space here in Bangalore where I am. So companies like us are doing good things. And there's a lot of people like us who are winning lots of awards, getting a lot of media coverage and so forth. But the trends that I want you to follow, and this is the last slide before we take questions, is there are a lot of new technologies that are coming out for outdoor uses, because that's where the pollution really is. There's a lot of pollution indoors, there's a lot of pollution outdoors, but there's a lot of great stuff coming out. That's leading to a rapidly increase in market size. It's creating new opportunities. As an example, with Devic Earth and Pure Skies, there was no air pollution control equipment for airports before we came along. There was no market for ports, shipping ports, before we came along. So these new technologies are creating new opportunities in areas where it didn't exist before. And then finally, there's looking forward in the future, you can expect to see really exciting technology that allows us to combine tech for air pollution as well as carbon capture. So clean tech and green tech together in one. And I think that's a really wonderful opportunity. So thank you for your attention. This is just an introduction to what's happening in the market trends and the gaps. I saw a question from Ankit Mohar. He's asking, I'm assuming you're saying, how does the technology get certified? And that's really important. All of this technology has to be certified and evaluated by third parties. And what that does is it allows us to have validation from third party. There are certain standards that have to be followed. And it's very important that all of these technologies undergo independent third-party validation. Other questions from the audience?
Thank you so much. So audience, you can ask questions. So we'll take it. And if not, I can ask like a couple of questions too.
Sure.
So like how big is the market size? Like, are there enough businesses in India who are tackling this problem? Like,
one of the things that we always look at when we consider market size is how many new entrants are there into the field. When Devic Earth started in 2018, there was really nobody in the outdoor airspace. There are a few people who came and went and came and went. Now, if you look, there's at least a dozen players across the international market. And that's really exciting. It's showing that the market size is increasing. It's showing that people are recognizing this. There are exciting VC investments into some of these startups that have come along. And there are also big established companies like Bosch and other big players, which are also investing heavily.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And in terms of IP, do you hold IP or do you interact with academics in any way? Or do you
yes,
how do you
IP
approach
is
this?
A huge part of our strategy, and we've taken on an entire IP strategy of not just the filing, but the protection and maintenance of the patents, of course, because we're a global company through the PCT route, and that's been hugely important for us to maintain good relationships with our legal firms. Also, as the technology advances, we've had to ask questions like, okay, this is a next generation. Can it go under the previous tech, or is this a previous patent, or is it going to be a brand new patent? And these are things that you guys are going to ask a lot of questions, because as a tech innovator, I don't have that background of understanding what's the patent route for my new technology, my second, my third generation technology, and how do we take this? This is where we need to interact and work closely together.
So we can take this last question, sir, from Dharan Kumar, if you can.
Sure. Anil is asking, Darin Kaman is asking, are there any carbon capture plants in India? Yes, there are. Tata Steel has one, and it is with a European-based company, and it's just about to go live. There's another one in South India that's using an amine-based or chemical-based process, and that has been live for about the last 2 years. They're still on the small scale, though. They're still on the small scale. But what's exciting is that you can expect this to scale up. Think about how electric vehicles were 5 years ago. You know, it was only the odd person who had an EV. Nowadays, we're seeing them come in rapidly. In the next 2, 3 years, EVs are going to explode. You're going to see this carbon tech and green tech do the same thing. And this is where the next $1 billion opportunity is.
Yeah. All right. So time is over, but maybe if you want, you can take this last question from Ms. Geetha.
Sure. So she asked, any strategies on indoor air pollution in our nation? So indoor air pollution is typically 2 to 5 times worse than outdoor air pollution. We spend most of our time indoors. More than 80 to 90% is spent inside buildings. And several strategies, you know, the government has done really well with strategies to get rid of chulas and replace them with LPG cylinders through various government schemes. There's also been an increase, especially with COVID, an increase of attention to ventilation, making sure that we constantly bring in fresh air into our indoor spaces. HEPA filters and air purifiers are good, but you need to have good, clean air, both inside and outdoors, to really take full advantage of clean air.
Mm-hmm. All right, sir. Thank you so much. It's a real honor to
so
have you. I think it fits so well with our, conference theme. That So I hopefully many thousands of more people will watch this this talk, and
Sure.
sir, hopefully we are in touch. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
So folks, we have our second speaker with us, Mr. Mahesh Godi. So Mahesh Godi, he is a serial entrepreneur focused on new disruptive technologies in energy tech, and that helps in combating climate change. He's the founder and CEO of Godi Energy, an innovative organization focused on R&D and giga-scale manufacturing, recycling of sustainable energy technology, and more. So Mr. Godi, he's going to join us in our live stream today, and he's going to speak about Godi Energy.
Good morning. Thank you, Rahul, for giving me opportunity to speak in this event. And I'll start sharing my slides. So how do I put this one here? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you and good morning. And my name is Mahesh. I'm the founder and CEO of the company. And I'll give a brief introduction about the company and what we are doing here. So we are the largest R&D house with the ambition to set up the first gigafactory by 2023. We have probably one of the company that have in-house 20 PhDs. No other startup less than 2 years of inception having these many PhDs working on the niche technology. And we are in the process of filing 20 plus patents as we talk. And I will talk about the opportunity what we have. So once in every 100 years, there will be big transitions happening. Like 100 years back, we start these IC engines. Now a transition is happening to the electric vehicles and energy storage due to climate change and all other activities we are witnessing day in, day out. We are witnessing the climate change happening. It's a real. So the storage opportunity in India is very big, and coming to the especially for the stationary storage, it's almost 138 gigawatt hour. On the electric vehicles is 40 gigawatt hour by 2022. So if you see in India, there is no cell manufacturing is happening, and even in India we don't have even 100 megawatt hour cell manufacturing happening at the commercial stage. So this is the biggest problem and biggest opportunity for our times, and it's going to grow up insane to the close to 2,500 gigawatt hour, both combination of storage and electric vehicles by 2032. And in this particular energy tech, a lot of innovations need to be happen, and this is the big opportunity we have. And also I will cover briefly about what are the tech that's we are working on, and what is a tech that's going to be really useful in the future, and not only for the electric but also for the storage as well. If you see currently, what we are focusing is working on the lithium-based advanced cell manufacturing. Primary focus is two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and the storage industry. And also we are working on the supercapacitors. Why supercapacitors is supercapacitors are mostly whatever we are doing here. Supercapacitors are manufactured by the plant-driven carbon, and 98% of these supercapacitors are with the plant-derived carbon. And the supercapacitors are really good for the regenerative braking and power smoothing application for the PV, and also for the pitch control for the wind turbines, and also power burst application for the forklifts and helicopter takeoffs, and also say if you have a truck that want to go uphill, and if you it should not use much of the lithium ion, it will abuse the lithium ion. There is supercapacitor will play a critical role. Supercapacitors will give a more instant energy and torque for the heavy power burst application. So that's what our focus also. And here a lot of innovation need to be happen, and that is the need. There's a need of the hour for the country as well. And since a lot of rare earth metals involved in the any kind of lithium ion, what is the next big thing after lithium ion is definitely the sodium ion batteries. The sodium will be play a very critical role, especially for the storage industry. You see for the storage, for the UPS applications, and for telecos, and also for the solar PV storage and the containerized solutions. All these things will happen, and that is also we are focusing on working on the technology as well. So, and coming to the parallelly, we are also working on the semi-solid to solid state batteries as well. That we need to go a lot of innovations, and a lot of IP need to be done before we get into the pilot and the commercial stage manufacturing as well. So, and I will cover about I think you see why we are ahead of the game within less than 2 years of the inception. So India need to be a centric of research, then after manufacturing, rather than manufacturing after research. So fundamentally, the thesis inside our organization is we do very thorough research at scale and at fast, and get into the commercialization stage. And while doing these activities, what is that important thing that plays protection of our IP? So that's what we have done it very fastly in India within 2 years, and you might have seen a lot of news across the industry happening, and we are the first in India to commercially manufacture the 21700 cells. This will go for the two-wheelers and four-wheeler applications. Yeah. So, and I want to talk about what's happening in the academia, and what academia need to focus as well. So academia do the fundamental research, and they do a lot of theses and publications related to the all the work they have done, and also they do a little bit of applied research, and they'll file the patents. But what I emphasize during this talk is that the academia play a very critical role for all the innovations that's happening in the world, because and also when these patents are applying, how commercializable they are. So rather than our patents are sitting there, and the academia need to focus getting these patents into the commercialization stage, so that it will help for the industry, and also for the government, and other activities. So if you see, this is the general commercialization thing happen anywhere in the world. Government play a very critical role in all the industry setups and everything. and academia do the fundamental research and applied research and file the patents. But industry also do the fundamental research, applied research, and commercialization and file the patent. So here, these patents need to be converted into the industry so that more innovation happens within India. We don't look at the technology for the other countries. So that's where this is really important, where academia need to closely work with the industry. What are the patents they are filing that can be commercializable? So what it helps for the economy in India is, with the commercialization, more economy is generating and employment will be generating. So you see, we have a lot of people are unemployed, and also below poverty level is very high in India. And one thing that make a big difference in Indian economy is having research and development with the support from the government and the industry. The technology need to be developed within India. We should not look for the technology outside. That's what the patents will play a very critical role. When somebody is applying for a patent, how commercializable it is. So that's what really a matter for us. And indirectly, these patents helps us to protect our trade secrets, and also protect the organization, both academia and the industry. And this helps to get into the commercialization and generate the economy and then the employment. So this is a brief talk about who we are and what we are doing, how the patents helps for the commercialization, and how the academia and industry need to focus to get the economy and the employment generation. And India should be driven by the R&D a lot, rather than looking for a JVs from the other countries, the technology and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If you can take any questions you like,
Yes,
maybe I can also ask at the end.
Please free to answer any questions if you have, and I'm happy to answer it. Yeah. So Mr. Gowda has asked me a question. Any development in charging the batteries using solar energy? Yes. So if you see in our product roadmap, there is a special technology called LFP, where that is really good for the storage from the power it is generating from the solar energy. And also the other big thing that is going to come up in the storage for charging the batteries is the sodium ion technology. So definitely there is a big opportunity in India for the solar energy to store and supply during the peak hours during the night time. Yeah, thank you. So any other questions you have?
I can see one more question by Mr. Gowda.
Yeah, so good question you brought. Like, so see, academia research is not commercializable. There are two things which I want to tell you is, because academia is a lack of funds, okay, and also academia need to work very closely with the industries to make it commercialization. It need to be come from the Department of Science, how it can be happen at very fast. And unless the academical level applied research should be turned into the commercialization, that's a key success for the country, and that should be happen. Yeah, thank you. This is from Geeta. What is the initiative from industry towards the linking academy and patent filing, or your interfacing platform? Please discuss and suggest. Okay, thank you. So currently we are working with academias as well. We are working with Imprint 2 project with Baba Atmic Research Center, IIT Mumbai, IIT Hyderabad, and ourselves, working closely on the next generation energy tech, and especially these kind of programs are there from the government of India, but these programs need to be framed in such a way that it should be easy for both academia and industry to collaborate more, and they should not kept the stringent conditions and everything and all. So they need to ease the policies so that these kind of collaborations will work much better. And also definitely the access to the fund for this kind of projects, right? And the kind of research we want to do it, the fund requirement is high. We always bound to the limited budgets and everything. That is one thing that definitely will need to be done. So yeah, so there are a lot of academic patents are there that are going into the where the industry is taking for the commercialization. There are, but not at the scale what we are looking. And there is also some programs that driven by the government itself. What are the academic funded projects that they need to be there will be industrial partner that need to be associated with that one, so that these patents can be transferable to the industry for the commercialization. There are some programs that programs need to be the policies level that need to be a little bit ease for the academic and also for the industry to work and accelerate this use the patents for the industrial commercialization.
Yeah. So you can see the comment section if you want to pick any.
Yeah. Can you tell me like where are these comments, or can you
In
read it out?
in the StreamYard in the broadcast studio, or I can show it if you.
Yeah. Okay, so how many patents filed in your organization? How many patents are granted? Yeah, so this is from, okay. So especially for our patents, we are closely filed 10 patents, and we are in process of filing additional 20 patents as we talk. And for us, it is really important to protect our IP, and that's really important because we work with the lawyers to protect, not only file the patents in India, but also file the patents globally so that it will protect our IP across the world. Yeah. Prasanna, she's, I think, uh, uh, what is the maximum distance that be covered with a single charge for a vehicle with sodium-ion batteries and lithium-ion batteries? Okay. So, if you talk about the sodium-ion batteries, there a lot of innovations need to be happen. And if you see the commercial scale, not big. You don't see on the roads, right? Sodium-ion batteries that vehicles are going on. So the energy density of the sodium-ion batteries are quite less compared to the lithium-ion batteries. And lithium-ion technology is already proven and its mass market already adaptations are there. And with a single charge, based upon the capacity of the battery, it can if you take a two-wheeler application, right? Whatever the technology we are working, it can go more than 200 kilometers for a single charge for a two-wheeler application. I'm talking, yeah.
Great, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure that this opens a lot of opportunities also for the audience as well as for us. We can see, explore, how we can connect to academia and, explore so many different problems that we can solve. So great, sir. Really honored to have you on our talk. And we will continue our talk with Miss Nishita Baliarsingh. And sir, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you everyone for participating today, and looking forward to talk to you. Thank you. Take care. Okay.
So, uh, so we welcome Miss Nishita Baliarsingh. She is the CEO of Nexus Power. So the brand Nexus manufactures rechargeable, bioorganic, and biodegradable batteries for electric vehicles. So these eco-friendly batteries are lithium-ion free, and they utilize crop residue as raw material. So efficiently managing the massive farm waste problem that India has, and also the batteries, they are 8x to 10x faster, and they last 20 to 30% longer than their counterparts. So we have with us Nishita. So Nishita, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Turnip Innovation Festival. So it would be great if you could tell in your own words what Nexus does, and how you are looking as a vision, and how you're looking to change the battery industry.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much, Mahesh, for that beautiful preceding session. So I'll tell you more about Nexus and what we do here. In a nutshell, we are building biodegradable electric vehicle batteries, fast charge batteries, precisely out of crop residue, and so it's pretty much a proprietary technology. So we've also filed multiple patents in India. We're in process of filing patents in the US, and the entire idea came out of a small terrace conversation where me and my co-founder, we actually were discussing about electric vehicles and the batteries, and why the batteries are the EVs especially are not a daily commodity in India, even after so much of buzz around EVs and the technology. So that's how we dug deeper into the entire space, try to understand what is more possible and what can be worked upon, and that's how we realized that probably lithium-ion batteries are a concern when it comes to battery tech and uh, adapting to EVs. So we wanted to see if there is something that we can do to fasten the adoption, precisely in terms of faster charging or better range, cut down the range anxiety, or maybe make it safer, because lithium-ion batteries are highly reactive and a lot of fire and safety hazards. And we've come across a lot of such news headlines in the last 3-4 months where EVs in India are actually blasting off because the batteries are catching fire. So we just wanted to see, how much we can work upon this, and see if there's something that can be improved upon. And globally, a lot of companies working on battery tech. So that's how the entire Nexus concept came into place. And through the research, that's where we ended up today. So it's typically a protein-based battery with a carbon graphite combination that's proprietary to Nexus, and that's how our biodegradable batteries come into place. And because the protein is extracted from crop residue, that's how we build the entire battery out of crop residue, and that's all about Nexus and what we do here.
That's great. And you've also raised funds, like being in a very early stage startup. So can you tell about like how you went about raising funds? And also, like, for academicians here, funding is like one major thing, right, which stops them. So maybe they can hear out the story and see the various opportunities out there.
So it's honestly a long process. It needs a lot of patience, and it's almost like a full-time process. So raising investments for your company, whichever way it may be through a debt, a loan, or something, or it may be through say equity investments, which is very prevalent right now, or it may be through Government of India grants. But it's a tedious process, and it's a time-taking process. So for any founder who wants to step into the entire world of raising investments, equity funding, or whichever way, they need to understand that it takes its own sweet time. Ideally, we say it takes 3 to 4 months, but it can take as long as 1 year as well. So the patience really matters, and what makes a difference is your ability to kind of hold on that long and keep your company going. What I always understood out of the entire investment process is there are times when you're actually not ready for an investment, but you really need the money to sustain. And there are times when you are completely ready for the investment, but you don't need the money. So you actually need to analyze whether you actually need the money or not. And there are also situations where you might need the money desperately to keep running your business, but probably you're not ready for the investment, and that's why a lot of investors don't come in at that time. So that is the moment where you actually should not give up and look for ways for still continuing your business. Whether it is through grants or it is through a friends and family kind of an understanding, something like that. So it's more important that you understand that business is a continuous process, and funding is not the ultimate goal for a company. It must go on whether or not we have the investment. So that's typically how I look at the entire scenario, because it takes its own time. Precisely, we have also spent almost 6 to 7 months in raising our investments, and it takes that much time to for typically for our company and the way we have been working on proprietary technologies. It takes some time, and especially for institutional professors and students, actually it's a little easier path for them, because Government of India gives a lot of grants through Department of Science and Technology and Department of Electronics and IT through BIRAC, which is the Biotechnology Council. So they give a lot of grants, and precisely Government of India also has institutional grants where it is actually given to the institutes, and professors under the following institutes take up their research work. So for people entering from the outer side of the entire segment into a pure startup and a company, for them it gets slightly more difficult because then their revenues are limited to grants that are available for startups and debt investments or equity investments that they can raise to continue their business if the backing from the founders end is less. But for precisely for professors and that segment, they have plenty of research grants from government also. So I think they can explore that angle. And it is always a matter of time where you need to understand when you are actually, when your product is that convincing and promising where people would like to put in the money. If there are different stages in your product, and there's a possibility that you might end up raising a little early, and that is where a lot of investment interest might not come in. So it's all about exploring those avenues. I mean, for any startup or any founder, in fact, for even professors wanting to start, I think it's always easier and more comfortable to start with the grants. Government of India and different state governments under their startup policies have plenty of grants which allow you to foster entrepreneurship and take it forward. So I think starting with the grants and pushing your innovation to a level where it is then purely fundable, that I call, that makes more sense rather than starting because you want the investment and then getting the money and then working on the product. The fact is, whether you get the money or not, the company should go on. That's how it is supposed to be.
And how about your IP journey, as in the practical aspects? Like being an inventor, usually you have to deal with attorneys, and like how did it go? Was it smooth, or like how did you figure out that? How did you learn and do the needful basically to get the IP?
IP and patent filing is, of course, you need an external help if you're not very equipped yourself. So you need somebody who's experienced with IP and somebody who we call an IP patent attorney, who actually looks into how your application should actually be filed. I mean, basically not how it is supposed to be filed, precisely the understanding of what is supposed to be on the patent and what is the number of pages or what is the kind of content you need, kind of lists and tables and graphs. So everything has to be listed very precisely because it's a formal document that has been registered for a proprietary technology. So, just writing a couple of paragraphs or kind of lengthening the entire document does not make sense. It has to be very precise and very research oriented. So it has to convince the reader with facts and figures, and you have to prove your technology, and that is how you finally can file for patent. So it is not that. So I really heard a lot of people have this perception that you file a 45 50 pages patent and document and you are definitely getting through, but that's not the case. Even if you have like 15 20 pages and some really good statistics and numbers that prove your technology and some graphs that really prove what you're doing, I think that makes sense. So you really don't need to have, I mean, it's not about the number of pages, it is more about the content that goes into it. So it's very important that you work on the content. And in terms of our journey with filing patents, of course, it was a first timer for us, and we took time to understand how this entire process works, what are the kind of forms you need to fill, and how much time you have to take it forward. Of course, the government of India, Startup India precisely, does give incentives to startups. So your patent filing fees nearly goes by half, and I mean, as compared to any regular institute or a company founder, the startups and individuals actually have this concession. So Indian government is actually promoting a lot of entrepreneurship, proprietary technology as well. So you just need to, I think, hunt for the right person who will guide you properly and clearly tell you, which way you can benefit it. Precisely, there are patent filings happen through various processes. There are third-party companies which take it up as a consulting consulting profession for them, and then the patent filing fees must be hardly anything, and your consulting fees is 10 20 times that. So you actually need to consult the right person, understand that you have used much, and see if it works for you. Accordingly, take it forward, because that's how it works. Precisely for filing patents. Again, before you start filing for patents, I think it's a two-way process. So you got to first file for a provisional patent, and the provisional patent can be filed when you are almost ready with what you want to file in a patent, but you still need about 6 7 months time. So we file a provisional patent to actually block the date, and this patent is valid for 1 year. So within that 1 year, if you file your complete patent, then pretty much your date is blocked. So anybody filing after that date, you get an
Yeah.
upper hand. So that's how we operate with the IP and the patents. And in terms of our entire journey, so like I said, because I do have a business background with my technological background, so management and technology comes together. So for us, things got a little easier in terms of negotiating with consultants and picking the right patent attorney. But sometimes it can get tedious. But for that kind of a process, I will mention that definitely you have incubators who have their own IP tie-ups with consulting firms, and they really help you out in choosing the right direction, and they also help you in filing the patents, the PCT, the international patents, everything. So it's not that difficult a ball game, but yes, it needs some time and understanding to work on it
Yeah.
precisely.
So maybe we take one last question before we move to Mr. Govind Kedia's talk. So he's an IP consultant himself, and he's talking about the future of e-mobility, basically. So just one last question, maybe. I think Mr. Lignesh Govda has this question.
Right. Okay. So it's what kind of materials used in batteries which are biodegradable nature. Okay. For our batteries, if this is a question for our batteries, for Nexus batteries, so our materials are purely biodegradable because it's a crop residue which is purely biodegradable nature. I mean, if you look at the crop, if you don't burn it or if you leave it on the soil, it precisely comes from the soil, goes back into the soil, and naturally decomposes. So that's the material that we're using to build our batteries, alongside carbon. Carbon, of course, is another form which comes from the soil, gets back in the soil, and there are no gaseous emissions out of it. And in terms of the biodegradability aspect, if you remove the outer shell of the battery, the cell that basically the shell that has the elements of the battery, if I remove that shell out, everything else is purely biodegradable. We can either recycle it to make the new form of batteries, or we could simply leave it in the soil to naturally biodegrade. So that's the composition of our batteries.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Nishita, for your valuable comments. Really very practical and very, very important for the audience that we have. So thank you so much. I have to end this session because we are starting our session with Mr. Govind Kedia. And yeah, hopefully many people will watch this video, and I'll be in touch with you. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me here. Of course, I would have loved to stay on and look at the other sessions, but I have a meeting actually. I'll have to quickly head out. So thank you so much for having me, and it was a lovely time discussing with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody, you can please move to the next session with the link in the description. Thank you.